Welcome, everybody. Hope you're all enjoying your Thursday afternoon. And it's a pretty gray and rainy day here in New York City. Well, welcome to everyone to webisode number 8 of Office 365 Pulse with Jennifer Ann Mason. Take it away, Jen.
Hey guys, this is Jennifer. Sorry, I was distracted by the chat window as I was talking to everybody. So sorry. Hope you guys are doing well. It's going to be a fun day today. We are going to share some really cool stuff with you guys. I'm going to share my sway with you guys right now. We are going to go through all of the updates today. There are quite a few updates, so we are going to go through those. And then once we get through those updates, I have got a special guest host with us today. Her name is Tanya Kaiser. And Tanya and I work together actually at Rackspace. And so we have spent a lot of time working on our own internal Office 365, I'm sorry, not Office 365, our own SharePoint, so we don't have 365 or running dedicated, but we've spent a lot of time working on that, and I wanted her to come in and kind of give you guys some insight on some of the things that she's been doing internally. She probably has a role similar to what a lot of you guys have if she is the point person for everything SharePoint internally. So I thought I'd bring her in and she could kind of give us some insight. So my sway should be presenting right now. As always, there are a couple little arrows in the corner of the screen. If you want to make it full screen, you can see the sway full screen. And then also in the chat window, I put in the link to the sway if you guys want to follow along. So whatever works for you guys works for me. So we're going to just jump right in here today. Okay, so we're did intro. I'll introduce Tanya again when we get there. We had a ton of Message Center updates in the last 2 weeks, guys. I went in and I was going through them. I was like, could they give us any more messages? So the first one is not really news. It's another update, but this time instead of saying the public websites are going away, they came out with very specific dates. So we have, beginning March 8th, 2017, existing SharePoint online, if you're using SharePoint online for a public site, that's the date that things have to be moved from. So they just added some more information, added some dates there. I know we've talked about this one quite a bit as to what we're going to do. I'm actually about to I think I'm going to go to my public website that I have there, jenniferandmason.com, and I think I am going to go ahead and put it on Wix because that seems really simple for the types of things I'm doing. So maybe we'll do a show one day and kind of talk how I went through that. But those are your updates for what's going on there. Nothing new, nothing significant. They also gave us some dates for when the Yammer integration is going to go away. So they've again been talking about this for a while. It's the apps that they had that you could put on your SharePoint site and then integrate with Yammer are going to go away, and then the embed option is going to be the supported option going forward. So again, nothing really new here, just putting some dates in front of it and trying to keep everybody up to speed on when those changes are happening. And I guess as always, I should have mentioned if you guys have any questions as we're going through some of these different things, or if you want some more details, if I can give them, I will. If not, I'll tell you everything I do know about it, and then try to help point you to some right resources. But feel free to put that into the chat window, and we can kind of go through it. Some new spam detection that's coming out with Exchange. They are constantly updating what they're doing in terms of spam and monitoring and different things like that. And when I was reading through this gets into a scenario where somebody's spoofing your email, sending it to someone else, and then someone else gets a response back that says you couldn't send this email. Gets pretty interesting because then people are confused because they're like, what do you mean I have an undeliverable? I never sent this email in the first place. And so what they've got is this backscatter spam detection that they're using to incorporate into Office 365, which should reduce some of those issues. So I don't know if anybody had seen some issues like that. It's mostly around causing confusion to users. So it's detecting and catching the spam, but if you're getting an email back that says you couldn't send this, there's actually links in there that are spam that could cause issues. So it's going to capture that and just make it a better and safer experience for you. So this is something that is going to start rolling out pretty soon to Exchange Online. So definitely something to look at there. The admin app for Office 365, let's see, I don't know if any of you guys have this. I was playing with this. I was playing with the updates today, so I'm actually going to show you guys. So we have the Office 365 admin app. See, it's going to load up. High tech. I'm about to show you on my phone with camera. So I don't even know if you guys can see it that well, but there's a new app that basically lets you connect to your Office 365 admin center. So if you have an admin account, you can set up this app and it's going to let you know the health, your number of users, what support tickets do you have active. So they've had an app for a while, but they've made a lot of updates, and they've also updated it for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. So if you're running on any one of these platforms, you should be able to get this app and see some of the changes. So I'd be interested to see, is anybody in the chat room actively using this app? Because that would be pretty neat to get some of your feedback if you guys are using this app. I haven't used it too much. But in all fairness, a lot of the admin tenants that I have are a lot of test tenants and stuff like that, but I'm excited to connect it with this one and kind of see and what can I do with the app to get the most out of it. So I'm kind of excited about it. So far, I've enjoyed the UI of it. Looks pretty interesting and just pretty straightforward and easy to use. So I think it's just another tool in our toolbox as we're going through and helping our organizations make the most with Office 365. All right, next update. You see what I mean? Like usually we have 1 or 2 message center updates, and today we have like 82, it seems. Not really 82, but a lot. The next one is that groups are getting a notebook. So if you're using groups in okay, so Kim had a question before I jump to that, and she asked, is the app available for the Android? And the answer is yes. It's Android, iOS, and Windows Phone, so you should be able to get it in the store for any one of those devices. So should be able to go ahead and get that. But back to groups. So groups, if you're using groups, they're in first release right now. So not everyone has them, but if you're in first release and you're using groups, you're going to start to notice that in the drop-down menu for the content that you can get for the groups, they've added a groups OneNote file. So it's a notebook that groups can use to share information. So this is something that's coming out. It's going to be deployed over the next few weeks. That's their famous new phrase that they're using. So over the next few weeks, everyone who's using Office 365 first release and has groups, they're going to start to see these changes. I think we've got 2 more here. Clutter. Clutter's been out for a while and they've had it, but they're making some changes to it so that when it gets updated, if you have a user within your organization that the system through using the telemetry and the machine learning and different things like that, if there is a user that the system feels could benefit from Clutter, they're going to be prompted to turn it on. So this might be something that they're going to start to see notifications for. So this is going to be something that you're going to want to work with their users. It sounds like we've got a couple of people in the chat room that love Clutter, so that's great. I think that is awesome. I think I've talked to some other people that love it as well and just think it works beautifully. Oh, and Derek said it must be already rolling out because he's had a couple of calls about it. I wouldn't be surprised, Derek. Usually by the time it hits the message center and it says in the next few weeks this is going to happen, it seems like they do a roll and it starts to just kind of go through everybody. So I'm not surprised about that, but if your users get an email or something like that, they can turn on Clutter. So it's more of just for you guys to be informed. And that's great. Suzanne also said that she sent out a notification to her users that they might get an email about it. So all great ways to handle it. And hopefully it will go pretty smoothly. I've noticed that when they are pushing notifications and stuff like that to users, they try to make it extremely self-explanatory, but that's what's going on. So if you weren't really aware of that, just something to look for, because your users might pop up and say, why in the world am I getting this? And you just want to be able to help them get the answers that they need. All right, and then the last Message Center update. I saw this one yesterday, and it was one of those ones that my husband and I were sitting on the back porch yesterday because it was 70 degrees and sunny and beautiful here. So I spent my afternoon taking my conference calls from the back porch, and as I was going through the Message Center and looking at these different pieces, I threw my hands up and I was like, wait, what? And my husband is like, what are you freaking out about? And so this is one that is just, it's interesting to me, and it's going to have impacts that I think we need to be aware of as we're looking at different things. But this is the fact that SharePoint Online document libraries now by default are going to have versioning enabled. So if you've been using SharePoint as many years as I have, it's kind of, you know, versioning's available, but it's off by default. And if you want to turn it on, you can go and turn it on and enable it where you want it. Well, starting, I guess, in the next few weeks, which is they're famous for it's starting to roll out, document libraries are going to have versioning automatically turned on. So unless you go in and turn it off, every library that gets created is going to have versioning set up. So there's things that you're going to want to pay attention to for like e-discovery and different things like that. If there's scenarios where you don't always want versioning on, you're going to just have to start to think differently and know that it's always turned on. Derek, that's exactly what my husband and I said yesterday. We were like, wow, what is that going to do to storage and finding stuff? And so I think it's just something we need to be aware of. I think it's for years we've been conditioned and trained to think about it as it's off and then I turn it on if I need it. So now I need to realize that it's on and I need to turn it off if I have a reason to turn it off, or I need to go in and set up parameters. How many versions do I want to keep and different things like that. So this notification hit this week. I'm still doing some thinking on it. I'm asking some questions as well. I've had some questions about, well, what about the libraries that are based on SharePoint libraries, but they're really like part of groups or something like that. So I would like to kind of dig in and get some more information on that. So that one's top of my list of things that I'm digging into. So hopefully we can, you know, keep digging into it and different things along those lines. Yeah, so Dan had some points about, well, is it going to count against our storage? Is it using shredded storage? How are all of these pieces working? And definitely, I wish I had all the answers to give everybody. I don't. I just kind of know that the change is coming, and I've put some feelers out in there to see if I can get some more information about it. And as soon as I get it, I will hopefully maybe on the next show I can update you guys and give you guys some more information. But just interesting things to look out for, changes that might trip you up if you didn't know it was coming. So definitely just something to pay attention to and see what you have along those lines. So those are our major Message Center updates. Today we also have a couple of first release updates that we want to talk to you guys about. And so when these hit, Dan from IT Unity last night, we were chatting back and forth about some of them. And this is one of those experiences where something just kind of popped up in our tenant and we weren't necessarily like, wait, where did this come from? Have you seen this? What is this? And so I know Dan and I have been talking about it, and Jasper and I have also been talking about it. We've been going back and forth with some of the Microsoft guys trying to figure out, hey, what is happening? What are these pieces? And so what we have is there are some first release updates rolling out that match to the roadmap entry for the Outlook web app notification. So in the roadmap, there's an entry that says there's an OWA notification notification pane, and there's going to be items that are going to be showing up. And it says that it's about emails, notifications, password extensions, and then it says, and in the future, groups. So I guess we can say we have arrived in the future because groups are getting flighted out to these updates now. So if you are running in a first release tenant, you are going to start to see in the upper right-hand corner a groups icon. On some pages, it's going to be 2 people, and on other pages, it's going to be 3 people. And when you click on it, what it does is it's supposed to show you recent conversation notifications and updates for that group. It's one of those things that seems to be mid-flight in terms of releasing. So what I mean by that is I have multiple tenants in first release. It's working in some of them. In others, it's there, but it's broken. And then in others, it's not showing up as well. I've reached out to Microsoft and was talking to them a little bit about it, and they said within the next couple of days, everything should be balanced out. So just a heads up if you start to see that. I know my users freak out whenever navigation changes. So it might be something else that you want to notify them about, and it might also be something that you just want to see. Yeah, there's a couple of people that say that they're seeing it now. Is it working for you guys? For anyone who's seeing it, is it working well for you guys? Yeah, Derek said he's got the 3 people icon. I have a 3 people icon depending on what page I'm on. Some pages show me 2 people. So, okay, so Derek's seeing it, but he's not necessarily seeing groups. So if he's not using groups, then I wouldn't think they'd see the icon, but either way, the icons are now showing up, and I'm hoping that they'll either give us some clarity about it or they will make it work. So I'm actually going to take some of the feedback that you guys have and see if I can go back and do it. I definitely don't like that the icon is showing up whether groups are used or not, because that's just confusing. So again, I wanted to bring it up because I knew that this audience would start to see it, and I wanted you guys to know, you're not crazy. There is a new icon there. It has to do with the OWA notification pane, and I guess that's starting to roll out. So as we can dig in and get additional information, we will definitely share it with you guys. If I can dig in and see what it's about, maybe I can get an article published over to IT Unity or something along those lines. Definitely we'll work on getting you guys some more information. But the point of the Pulse show is to kind of pull everybody together and say, hey, here are the updates that are going on. And sometimes we have all the information we need, and then other times we're just kind of working together. Yeah. That's funny. Derek said maybe it's a reminder that the feature exists, so when people see it, they're going to be like, hey, I need that feature, even if they're gone, which makes me laugh. So interesting stuff. So we'll definitely keep digging into it. Another really cool one that Dan found last night, I was super excited when he found it, is that the new people profile page is available in some tenants. And so we got to this by going to the gear in the corner, Office 365 settings, and then About Me. And on some of my tenants, the new page was there. And so the new people page where you can go in and put information about you and different things like that. So again, if you see this starting to come up, just notice that some of these things are hitting first release. So the About Me page is hitting first release on some tenants. So you might start to see those changes. So again, just a heads up, I'm not seeing it on all of my tenants yet, and all of my tenants are first release and I'm not seeing it. So I'm only seeing it on one of the 3. So it's rolling out in stages, and there haven't been any notifications or anything like that about it. It's been on the roadmap, so we know it's coming, but nothing in the message center or no major blog saying it's arrived yet. But definitely stuff to watch out for. And then the other thing that we kind of have under this category of, I should have just labeled this whole category, because it was things that made me go, I'm not really sure what to totally think about this. But the other thing that we saw this morning, and this was again, Corey and I were working on different things, but while Corey was in his tenant this morning, he got a message across the suite bar that said, "We're doing work to improve the site. Please bear with us if you experience temporary delays or glitches." And so that I thought was very interesting, because we looked at his site. There was nothing in the health center. There was nothing in the message center, and there was nothing that in a blog or anything like that said anything was going on. But it was kind of giving him a real-time notification that something was happening, or something could be happening, or you could have a temporary delay or a glitch. Not totally sure what a glitch would be considered, but I thought it was interesting that this type of notification was coming up. And so this is another one that we're going to be trying to track down and see, okay, what causes this to come up? Why is this coming up? And when it does come up like this, how can I dig around and find out more things that are going on? So I don't know if anybody's seeing anything like that in their environment, but these are just definitely things that we have seen in the last little bit that we thought were worthy of talking about on the show, where we could just get up and say, hey guys, let's chat about these different things that are there. Okay, awesome. So then that brings us to the next section, which is our office blog updates. And so this is where we kind of go through and we chat about, okay, what are all of the initiatives that have hit the blogs of things that are coming? So lots of super, super interesting stuff, I think, that is out there. The first one is that the OneNote clipping tool has been updated, and it supposedly has more intelligence in it. I'm not gonna lie on this one. I tried to use the OneNote clipping tool a couple of years ago when I really first started getting into OneNote, and it just wasn't what I needed it to be. And I am a huge Snagit user, and so I've always got Snagit running, and so I don't usually use the OneNote clipping tool. It does sound, though, like it's getting a lot closer to being able to be something that I could use for simple screenshots and different things like that, especially when I want to put something directly into OneNote. So it sounds like they're getting lots of improvement. So it's probably time that I check out that tool again. But there's definitely some updates there. Oh, Derek said I'm committing blasphemy because I'm not using it, because he loves it, and I think it's great. I guess it was because I had another tool that did everything, so I just kind of went back to that one. And Kim says she really likes it as well. So it is settled. I need to put away the tool that I use all the time now for at least a couple of days and try to use the OneNote clipping tool and see if it gets me everything I need. So you guys have convinced me. That is what I'm going to do. Awesome. Y'all are great. I love it. Okay. So the next update that we have is the dashboard. So I already showed you guys the admin dashboard. I showed it to you. They did a message center update and a blog post update on this one. So just really trying to get the word out there that you guys can go out and get that updated tool. The next one that I absolutely love is that Office 2016 is an IT Pro and developer preview, which is wonderful. I love the new, whoops, it sounds like my sway might be stuck. Okay. I think my sway, hopefully you guys can see it. But Office 2016 is now available out in preview. So I'm going to actually, it sounds like we're having a lot of trouble with the sway, so I'm going to stop sharing and then try to reshare and see if it comes back up again. But Office 2016 Developer Preview, IT Pro Preview, I've been running it on my machine now since it came out, so I think that's been about 2 weeks. and I have loved it. I am using it solely as my processor. Like everything I do, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, as well as sorry, Skype for Business. So I have been using it, and I love it. I've had a couple of issues with PowerPoint and the refresh rate. So if I'm in the middle of a presentation, it will start, flashing like crazy, and then it will fix itself. So I've had to reboot a couple of times. Let's see. It sounds like you guys still cannot see my sway. I think we're having some technical issues here. Okay. Well, I'm going to just keep talking. You guys all have the link to my sway in the presentation. I'll try to, stop and share it again, but for whatever reason, the system is not working with me. So try to keep going with it here. All right. Hopefully that gets us where, no, okay. I'm not quite sure what's going on with our technical difficulties, but we'll just work through it. Okay. So the Office 2016 technical previews out. Skype for Business is probably my favorite one so far. Even though it's just a lot of UI changes and stuff like that compared to Link, I love it in comparison to Link, just from a usability perspective. Outlook, I've struggled a little bit with the layout of it, so the ribbon and stuff like that is just spaced a little bit different and stuff like that. So I've been a little perplexed by that one as I've been working with it, but overall it is a very stable preview and I'm having a blast using it. So I also send content back and forth to everyone all day long who's not using the preview, and they're in fact using probably versions of Word all the way from 10 to 16, and I haven't really had any issues with it at all. So again, you definitely want to use it wisely, but I totally would support going in with you guys and checking out the preview, giving some feedback to the team that's working on it so we can get our voice out to Microsoft and let them know what is good and not good, what we want to see changed. They did say that the previews are not necessarily, or the preview doesn't have all of the features yet. It's not necessarily all there, but it's a good set of the things that are there. So all really good stuff. The next update that hit is probably my favorite, although you guys could probably accuse me of saying that everything's my favorite, because I think that's all I do. I just keep going through and saying, okay, this one's my favorite. But the next one that they announced is that Azure Express Route is going to have connectivity to Office 365. That is huge, guys. So if you guys do not know what Azure Express Route is, this is a new feature that basically lets your organization create a direct express channel to Office 365. So they have said that that is going to be coming to Office 365. They have not released pricing, and they have not necessarily said when and how it's going to be available, but the fact that it's going to be available, I mean, when we talk about limitations of people moving from on-prem to Office 365 and putting things in the cloud, these are the types of features that tear down all of those walls and just make it easier and make it just a better experience when your organization moves there. So totally something to be looking into, Suzanne. I was actually curious when I read this if you guys were looking at that. So Suzanne's working with a pretty large Office 365 implementation, and so it's interesting to hear that she's looking into it. So we are, that's really interesting. I would love to, have some more conversations with you, Suzanne, about that and see what you guys are doing. But big news for the Office 365 folks, and it is a huge, huge investment that Microsoft is making for us. So awesome, great things, something that we need to keep just coming up with. So it's great. You know, we have issues of why we can't do it, and then they've got issues and solutions for us. So great stuff there. The next one that we have is a Salesforce app inside of Outlook. I have not been able to play with this one yet. We are big Salesforce users and we are big Outlook users, but I haven't had a chance to download the app and do it. But basically, this is an app that lets you quickly and easily share your data and get data between Salesforce and Outlook. So I've sent it out to a few of my sales team, and I'm hoping that I can get some feedback on it, and I'm going to be installing it pretty quickly as well. Okay. And then the last update that we have for the blog post updates, this one's interesting for me. So I'm not sure that I have enough information on this one to make full calls and decisions and different things like that, but there is a modern authentication public preview. So we're going to throw a lot of words around that. So modern authentication. So what they're trying to say is they're making it more accessible and easy to manage advanced authentication methods for getting to your content that is stored in Office 365. And so with these new public previews, it's going to make an additional set of features available to you. But this is definitely one of those previews that's got a lot of fine print. So I would definitely consider reading all of the fine print, understanding exactly what you want to go in and do before you go in and set it up. So there's certain things that you would have to do, like on everyone's client machine and different things like that, to get the preview to work correctly. But the preview is out and open, so if you're looking for some additional authentication methods, or if you're looking for specific solutions around how you guys need to access the environment, I definitely encourage you guys to check this out, see what's there. I've got some links in there, and then the additional details, they've got a pretty long list of pros and cons for it. Yeah, so Dion was saying there's some implications if you're using multi-factor authentication with Office desktop clients. Yeah, and so there's different scenarios that they'll say don't use this preview if you're doing this, and that's because the preview doesn't include all of the different pieces and all of the different components and configurations. So it's one of those that you'd have to look at what you were doing and then determine if it makes sense to include it in your plans and the different things like that that you're testing. So I fully expect this whole concept of modern authentication is going to be something that we're going to hear a lot about in the future, and this is one of those first jumpstart pieces into it. So all right, I feel like I talk so fast, y'all, but I wanted to make sure that I gave time for Tanya and I to talk. And so maybe, Tanya, while I'm wrapping up, you can get your webcam started and get your mic and everything set up, and then we can kind of move to that next point of the presentation. But these were all of our updates this week. It's been interesting. We started out doing the Pulse every week, and then we found that, you know, there's not quite enough updates to go every week and get them in, but going every 2 weeks, holy cow, did they have a lot of updates. So it's just very interesting to see the pace at which updates are coming. And so I am super thrilled to see all of these changes. A lot of these, again, pretty monumental changes this time with the Express route and some of the Office 2016 hitting technical previews. So really great things that are coming. So it's been a super awesome couple of weeks just trying to see this. So I think we're going to switch into the part now with Tanya. So Tanya, were you able to get your webcam and your mic set up so you could join us? Awesome. So
Yes, I was.
Yay, Tanya. So Tanya and I have been working together now for several years, it seems. She works with me over at Rackspace, and we actually got started because when I went there, one of the things that I took on and said is, you know, let's get Rackspace using SharePoint internally. And so I went around and I found a group of champions and worked with them to get sites set up, and all of these things that we talk about with adoption and getting people started. And then as we started doing this, and it became something that I was doing a little bit of, to something that, wow, we really, really need a full-time person to do this, Tanya actually transitioned in that role from a champion to being the full-time admin that's kind of keeping us up and going. And so it's great. I love it, because I love to point at Tanya and say, see, what we tell you guys to do really can work, and people can step up and do this, and I love it. And so I've just loved working with Tanya. She's done some great things with our environment. So Tanya, I would love to just have you kind of give maybe a little bit of some backgrounds on you and your experiences and kind of what we have going on at Rackspace in the realm of SharePoint.
Sure. And I mean, just to kind of give everybody of my background, so I've been at Rackspace about 2.5 years. And prior to coming to Rackspace, I worked at a law firm for close to 12 years, just under 12 years. Did a lot of project management and document management, and kind of became their unofficial office suite trainer. So the law firm was using WordPerfect, and I was the person in charge of converting them over to, a Microsoft Word primarily, but just the full office suite. And, that started early 2000s, and then Microsoft went when people were finally getting used to it and introduced the ribbon. So we kicked off a whole nother slew of training, and, I just kind of brought them a little bit closer and closer each year into the tech world. When I left for Rackspace, they were just getting to the point where they were starting to convert all of their paper files into digital files. So I feel like I've done them a long way. Coming to Rackspace was the first time I used SharePoint, and I immediately called my IT manager and said, I've solved our problem for communicating and handling documents across all of the office locations throughout Texas and New Mexico. So it's been great for me here at Rackspace. The team that I started with was really one of the early adopters of SharePoint 2013. So we were a great guinea pig. We had a lot of heavy documentation and a lot of collaboration that we needed to do with a lot of our, field people and work from home people, just kind of all across the U.S. So it definitely solved a business need for us. And like Jennifer said, we have a few key rackers around Rackspace who became SharePoint champs, as we call them. So when rackers had questions, they could go to those people and, try and get some help, but there really wasn't one person keeping an eye on everything. So I'm the lucky one who got to jump into this role, and I've been in the role about 6 months, and we're, making a lot of changes for rackers, but all leading towards, a really good and stable farm. And not just the farm itself, the infrastructure is supported by our dedicated SharePoint team. So we have really, really great, support on the infrastructure side, but we needed to pull in, some governance, some policies, processes, and just the overall, I consider it more, soft skills, the people management that goes along with the farm. So we're putting a lot of those things in place right now through the, end of the year. When I talk to people about what my role is, a lot of my customers happen to be rackers, other Rackspace employees, and I tell them it's just like any other customer SharePoint environment. It just happens to be internal. So, when I interact with my engineers, it's through our customer portal. When I go, talk to a group of rackers and advise them, we set up requirements gathering, we set up, site consultations, just like I would for a customer, because we really want it to be treated like a customer environment and give them that kind of end-to-end experience. Yeah. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand, because they're like, well, you're a racker, but you're treating us like a customer. So I explain that my role is dual purpose. One half of it is user education and adoption, and the other half of it is farm management and maintenance. And
it's interesting, like with consulting companies, and I'm sure we've got some consultants in the room right now, and it's those cobbler kids get the last shoes. And so when you're trying to actually implement systems correctly internal to a company that has systems that they're implementing for others, we're kind of used to running very lean and making the most of the technology, but not having a resource like you that we can go to get assistance and stuff like that. And so it's a very interesting mindset change that I've noticed as working with rackers when we're doing different things. But a couple of questions for you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I love questions. So if you could start all over again at the beginning, what is one or two things that you might do totally different? What can we learn from your pain?
I think, the biggest struggle is that, rackers just love to dive in and just get going. And some of the things that we're looking at, should we change is if we had started from scratch, right now we provision every site automatically via script, which is amazing for rackers, but it also means that we give them full control, and we're trying to okay, we put the cart before the horse, now we got to come back and rework things a little bit and say, well, we know you've been running this site, but we want you to go through training. So now that we know so many people are using, all of the SharePoint sites and starting up sites and connecting them, that's great, but I think we really should have put a hard policy in place about training, which Jennifer was really good about doing, and then when Jennifer moved on to other things and, there was a gap there for a period, we just kind of had to open things up. So we were doing it that way. I wish we could have kept on that path. And I think also having, probably the one thing which we are moving towards this year is having, a really, truly global collaboration environment, not just the U.S. I primarily deal with the U.S. environment, but we have, international. We have London, Hong Kong, and Sydney, and we've got these different little SharePoint environments. So if we could have had to sit down and really plan this out, that would have been the grand plan, to have one large global collaboration. I mean, obviously in different data centers because of geographic requirements and stuff, but really have everybody kind of on the same platform at the same time, which we're working towards. But it really would have been nice to have that from the get-go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how about what are some of the tools that you use internally, to manage things? I'd love for you to share about your internal user group and different things like that, because you've done some really amazing things with that, and I think that would be, helpful for the audience to hear about some of the things you guys are doing.
No, absolutely. So before I was even in the role, like we said, we had SharePoint champs, and me and another racker who were using it quite a bit with our teams, really decided that we wanted to kind of grow this environment inside Rackspace, not just to help rackers, because we got a lot of questions and that wasn't our main job at the time, but also to really kind of show the business that there was, there was a community here that really wanted to get more information about it. So we know that there's SPUGs all over the city. There's a San Antonio SPUG, there's an Austin SPUG, but we decided to kind of start our own internal SharePoint user group. So we don't call it a SPUG, we call it ISUG, I-S-U-G, because it's internal. And we started that last April, so our 1-year anniversary will actually be next month. And we put a plan.
Oh, it looks like we lost Tanya. So we'll give her just a second to see if she, right when she got to the sweet spot of the story, we lost Tanya. Well, hopefully she'll come back. Otherwise, I'll have to steal her thunder and tell her about that user group. But so Tanya, I loved it because I was getting so busy as the primary SharePoint admin that I wasn't able to start a user group and keep it up. And so her and the other racker that she was talking about, Jeff Valdez, they really wanted to kind of bring everybody together. And I remember we sat down in one meeting and I said, guys, I love it and I'm going to do anything that I can do to help you, but I can't run it at all. I can't organize it. I can't do anything. And so on her own, Tanya and Jeff went and got the logo created for it, got a name for it, got everything set up, started working with our internal training group, and got a room set up, and then also got a sponsor to feed everybody. Oh, she made it back.
I'm back.
Awesome! Yay!
So one of the things that we have happening a lot at Castle is reworking our technology in our meeting room. And guess what just happened? They hit my row. But I was talking about our user group. So we've been doing that, every month, and we structure the user group. So we pick a topic. It can be, what's a new maintenance or a new development internally. We may have a team come in and showcase their site, or we just demo. Right now, since it's coming up on a year, we're kind of, doing like flashback, like, hey, last year we talked about permissions. We're going to talk about that again because there's new people. And the more you work in SharePoint, when you revisit things, you always take away something new. But the one issue that we do every single session is give them a tip of the day, something small that they can go back to their desk and do right away and, use that. So we have an internal user group site and we post those tips out there. Branching off from the user group, we've started to build out a knowledge base. A lot of that content comes direct from Microsoft. They've got great documents out there, that are really good for people who get SharePoint as their additional duties, is how a lot of people get their start in SharePoint here. They're handed a site and said, hey, you own this now. So we've got the very basic documents out there, how to share a document library, how do you follow something, how do you set up permissions, just very basic stuff. And working with our own internal help desk too. So the service desk has their knowledge base built out. But it all kind of started with the user group, just wanting to build that community where people could come in, learn a few tips, meet other people who maybe have the same issues, because it also gives me an insight into what the wrapper pain point is. I definitely get help with that.
How many people do you guys have attending?
We have, on average, every month, 20 or so people. So it's second Tuesday of the month, and then we're now kind of getting more on now that we finally have our internal networking features worked out, like with Link and other video chat, we're getting a few, but it's pretty strict to the capsules. We have about 20 every month. So this year, when we kicked off January, we had almost 30. And with some of the changes I'm making internally, I expect that to grow because I've kind of pushed it. Like, if you want to get the latest update, come to the user group.
Yeah, you have to come to the user group. I love it. I love it. It's interesting. It sounds like a lot of people in the chat room are having similar issues where they've given people too much control, and then now they know they need to scale it back. What was that like? I mean, because you almost don't know you need to scale it back until you've opened it up too much. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma. So can you maybe talk through that a little bit and what your experience has been with that? Maybe some of your pain points and moments where you knew there was a problem?
That's something that we're really taking a hard look at right now. So like a lot of companies out there, we have different SharePoint environments. We have some on SharePoint 2010, some on SharePoint 2013. We just eliminated our 2007 environment over the last couple weeks. So I'm, for better or worse, I'm the person who stands up and says, no, we're no longer going to do that. And you just have to know, as an administrator, you have to kind of draw your line and stick to it, because there will be people who will always ask for the exception. And when we said we were completely shutting down the 2007 environment, there was going to be a downtime for a couple of days, projected downtime. It ended up only being, about 1 day instead of the 3 days that we had scheduled. But, one of the first things I did is went to my senior leaders and said, in this scenario where somebody comes up and they may be a high-level person and they say they absolutely have to have it, my response would be X. What would you say? And they said, nope, that's it. I said, that's all I need to know. So we had to draw that hard line. But moving forward for the 2013 farm, these things that we're considering, like Sherman said, trying to scale back some of the control. What we're looking at first is, what are our key stakeholders? You have the everyday users, who just come in and grab something, need to upload documents. You have the power users, and then you have people who really want to build a custom solution from the ground up and need, that high level of control. So before we even put, changes in place, we're meeting with certain stakeholders, and we're meeting with, in our case, our service desk, to really talk through, well, if we make this change, what is the support model? Not just for the U.S., but also international, because we are moving towards, this global platform. They don't have the equivalent of my role for our international team, so that's been a pain point that they've identified now that I'm in the role. They're like, we want that. So, things like that. We're really discussing what does a support model look like if we, pull back some of this control. And through the user group, I've kind of let people know, like, hey, I'm going to keep mentioning stuff. We're going to start, we're going to start running reports on the farm, and if you don't have users in groups, I may shut down your site for a little bit until you get groups added. Or, if I see that you've done something and I've asked you to go to training, I may, restrict your permissions. And it's kind of the carrot and stick. Like, I don't want to do these things, but we've got to get some governance on the farm, and it's going to be a hard change for some folks, and just kind of have to push through it. But the key for us is letting them know every step of the way, why we need to make these changes. We just recently had a maintenance where we have, like any company, we have internal, external IPs, we have internal, external, URLs and stuff like that, different network structure. We had to make a change, at the request of one of our security teams, and I put out global comms, 3 days leading up to it, like, this maintenance is going to be happening, there's going to be downtime. The maintenance, we always do a very wide maintenance schedule. This was expected to take a couple hours, and we, set up an 8-hour block, which was the shift for my engineer, and it was, completed early. And then sure enough, I know that I have to be at my desk early Monday to answer questions because they're always going to come in. So that's kind of key. Even though I let them know what the change is going to, when the downtime is going to be, why it's being done, it's finished early, everything's good. There's always going to be questions. People don't read every email.
Yeah, so how about the, I know when I started, and then even when you were transitioning into the role and stuff like that, we had a huge issue with people, hallway conversations and pulling us in, and private emails going against the system and stuff like that. So can you talk us through like the process of how you've been able to transition getting people from emailing you directly to maybe going into our help solution, and maybe kind of explain how we manage those requests and different things like that?
Yeah, that is an ongoing problem. Especially people that have come to know me through the user group. They're like, hey, I just needed you to answer this quick question. And usually I tell them, if it's something really quick, like, oh, this is in site settings navigation. Or, if it's a 1-2, go here, I'm happy to answer those. If it's more than that, we redirect them through our portal. Same place they request a site, there's a help button right next to it. And I've let them know, in the user groups and emails, like, look, if you email me, I'm probably not going to see it, because I'm getting, emails about the farm and emails, about the business decisions, and, I filter things. We have a lot of alerting on our farm. So I just try and tell them, like, I want to help you, but you need to submit the help request. And the other part of that is I let them know we're building a business case. It's been great to have my role. I think there's a need for it internationally. But just showing you, it helps me identify their pain points, and I can kind of guess, like, well, the biggest issue records have is permissions or forms or workflows. But if we have the numbers behind it, that's even better. So it's an ongoing battle. I don't think that ever really stops, with any kind of business. People know that you can take care of stuff. They're always going to try and come to you directly. So
I've been gone 2 years, and I'm still getting random emails. It happens.
And she still sends them over to me. So, and now, our larger SharePoint team, so Rackers will always try and go the direct route. They'll email an engineer, they'll email, Laura Rogers, they'll email Jennifer Mason, Todd Clint, and I just kind of let everybody know, just send it over to me, and I'll redirect them. And, we also let them know, I am a team of 1 right now, so my engineers are great. They support the infrastructure, but as far as direct customer support for Rackers, it's me, so we let them know it may be a few days. And we occasionally have Rackers. It happened yesterday. I was out of the office, and I have my out-of-office reply, and I saw the help request come in. They followed the directions. That was great, but then an hour later, they emailed me and said, hey, I submitted a request. I haven't heard back yet. And then 30 minutes later, they hit me up on Link, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm out of the office. I'll answer your email tomorrow. So it's just trying to stick to that and really knowing where to draw the line, which can be difficult, especially when I step in to help like our UK office or somebody in Sydney. But really trying to just say, these are my office hours. Yeah. And it's really, unless there's a site down, I don't consider it an urgent issue, no matter who you're trying to get your site up for. Because my whole goal is to serve the whole community and, really put policies and process in place. So.
Yeah, and I would say that it's something to note, like at Rackspace, SharePoint is not considered a mission-critical system. So we're not doing mission-critical day-to-day work inside of SharePoint. If it was a mission-critical system, there would be a completely different path to support it. So there would be multiple Tanyas, and there would be multiple ways to get stuff, and it would be treated differently. But it's a great collaboration system. It's a great tool that we're using, but it's not necessarily that mission critical. And so that kind of impacts how we do different things. And so we're building different business cases to get additional resources for it. So Tanya, there's a question in the thing that says you have a certification in your profile. Have you been able to use that to apply that framework into the SharePoint environment at all?
Yeah. Not so much idle now, but from my project management perspective, I have like a roadmap for things that we're going to be implementing in the farm and tasks that we're going to take. So, I mean, I think all of those, formal frameworks come into play. Probably some of the governance stuff that we're going to be instituting is going to be heavily reliant on these more, agile and stuff like that. But like Jennifer just mentioned, mission critical, part of my role, now that somebody's in, with the environment every day, everything that I do relates to the farm in some way. I am making the case that, yes, there are mission critical things going on in SharePoint. And, when I came on board, I spent the first few months just talking to rackers and seeing what they wanted help with, because they were so excited to have somebody, and said, I know you're excited. I'm still going to tell you no, but tell me what your pain is. And then, the first quarter of this year, really fine-tuning what's going to happen, with our legacy environments, moving them over. And then the second half of the year, putting in place, governance, process, policies, starting to really, get the 2013 stuff, whether we restrict, permissions, meeting with the stakeholders, that sort of stuff. But a big part of it was really taking a look at what's going on in our environment. And I, have found several processes and teams where I would classify them as mission critical. We went through a risk assessment. It's something that a lot of companies do. They start that BCP plan, and they start off with a risk assessment or analysis and a business impact assessment. And, I really dug into the sites and said, hey, I think we have a few things here that, justify a team having headcount, because they really need to be able to manage this process that they created within SharePoint. And, our security team has been great about that. And our internal IT ops team has been great about understanding that too. So again, I think it makes the case for my role in, on the international side as well. But it was been something that was really hard looked at for. So I obviously want to make the business case for SharePoint. And I think, just by what people are doing in it, they're making the case for me. So it's a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to go on. And then, like Jennifer said, there's the always constant emails that I think a lot of rackers understand, because we all get tickets from different systems and stuff. But I'm enjoying it. And, the biggest thing that I think I've been able to do in the role is just to, elevate it a little bit. Now people know there is a dedicated person, because it was really hard. I mean, everybody wants to get time with Jennifer. So it was really hard to want to get that time with her, and she's trying to keep other things going and still get this off the ground.
Yeah, it was beautiful when we finally got to show, and then when you got to come over and get the role, it was just exciting for me, because you were one of our champions and you've done such an amazing job doing all of it. So I'm so thankful you could come and share with us today. I think it's just neat for people to hear real world stories. It's not always everything, that we say in the books, and it's going to be just like this and just like that. There's the reality of, every system going through these different pieces. So totally appreciate you coming out to do it. And so we are almost out of time. And so the very last thing we have, Dan, if you want to scroll up on my sway when you're sharing it, is just the reminder that the Yammer group is out there for Office 365. And so if you are not a member of this group, you definitely should check it out. It's where you can communicate, network, different things with people in Microsoft, other MVPs, other community folks, and it's just a ton of excellent information is always out there. So we want to make sure that we highlight that for you guys, get you guys connected, have you guys join us in the conversation there. So I think that kind of wraps up our show today. I hope you guys found it helpful. Lyman is going to go ahead and put the feedback up there for us, and we read through that feedback every week and try to try to incorporate that into doing it. Yeah, I love it. Tanya is saying, everyone's saying that Tanya was helpful. I love it because that's the exact type of role that we really want to reach out to in the show and get you guys some of this information. So we can definitely have Tanya back and talk through some other things. I've loved having her, so it's super fun. So we can stick around for a few minutes answering questions in the board if they come up, but otherwise we will have kind of the evaluation put out there, and then we will see you guys again. I think the next episode is in 2 weeks, and we're actually going to do some stuff on Skype for Business. So we've got Seaburn Wilson is going to be joining us, and he leads our Skype for Business practice over at Rackspace, and so he's been really charging the way with the link transition to Skype to Business, and so he's going to talk to us about that, and we're going to kind of dig a little bit deeper into those pieces. So definitely something that we're going to be looking into for next time, so I hope you guys will join us. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.